The heat at the Texas border just maxed out, as a latest video shows cartel members exchanging gunfire with United States Delta forces. The viral video reflects the severity of cartel violence, and it shows how far these organizations are willing to go to maintain their trafficking routes. But there is more. Information reaching us is that the shootout was not just an empty display of violence. It was a statement in response to some bold moves Trump's administration has been making since he returned to office. What exactly did Trump do to provoke cartels? The answer lies in the details of the unbelievable clash. This viral video of a clash between the cartel has taken the internet by storm, offering a rare glimpse into the high-stakes confrontations that occur along the United States-Mexican border. The footage reveals a dramatic shootout as the Delta forces intercept cartel members attempting to smuggle drugs and weapons into the United States. The events leading up to the viral footage of the Delta forces clashing with Mexican cartels are rooted in a meticulously planned operation by the United States military and Border Patrol agencies. The Texan border, a known hotspot for cartel activity, had been under increased surveillance following intelligence reports indicating a significant smuggling attempt was imminent. In the days leading up to the confrontation, United States intelligence agencies intercepted communications between cartel members, revealing details of the planned operation. The cartel had chosen a remote section of the border, hoping to exploit the challenging terrain and limited law enforcement presence. On the day of the operation, the cartel members made their move under the cover of trees. As they approached the border, they were unaware that a team of Delta forces, along with Border Patrol agents, lay in wait, prepared to intercept them. The Delta forces, renowned for their precision and expertise in high-stakes operations, had been strategically positioned to ensure a swift and decisive response. As the cartel convoy crossed into United States territory, the Delta forces sprang into action, blocking the path of the vehicles and ordering the occupants to surrender. What followed was a tense standoff, as the cartel members, realizing they had been caught, refused to comply with the orders. The situation quickly escalated, with the cartel members opening fire on the Delta forces in a desperate bid to escape. The ensuing shootout was intense, with gunfire echoing across the borderlands as both sides exchanged shots. The Delta forces, trained for such high-pressure situations, responded with precision and discipline, using their superior tactics and firepower to gain the upper hand. The cartel members, outmatched and outgunned, found themselves in a losing battle. Despite their attempts to fight back, the Delta forces neutralized the threat, ensuring the safety of their team and the surrounding area. As the dust settled, the Delta forces moved in to secure the scene, apprehending several cartel members who had survived the confrontation. The operation was a resounding success, with the Delta forces and Border Patrol agents seizing a significant quantity of drugs and weapons, effectively thwarting the cartel's smuggling attempt. The footage of this dramatic encounter, captured by surveillance cameras and body cams worn by the Delta forces, quickly spread across the internet, captivating audiences worldwide. The United States-Mexican border has long been a focal point in the battle against drug trafficking, serving as a strategic gateway for cartels seeking to smuggle illicit substances into the United States. This vast and often rugged expanse stretches over 3,000 kilometers, encompassing diverse terrains from deserts to urban areas. The border's amazing length and varied landscape present significant challenges for law enforcement agencies tasked with monitoring and securing it. Historically, the Mexican cartels have capitalized on these challenges, establishing sophisticated networks to facilitate the movement of drugs, weapons, and other contraband across the border. The origins of these cartels can be traced back to the mid-20th century, when small-time smugglers began to organize and expand their operations. Over the decades, these groups evolved into powerful criminal organizations, wielding significant influence and resources. The 1980s marked a turning point in the cartel's operations, as the demand for cocaine in the United States skyrocketed. Colombian cartels, which were the primary suppliers of cocaine, began to collaborate with their Mexican counterparts to transport the drug through Mexico and into the United States. This partnership proved lucrative, and the Mexican cartels quickly rose to prominence, establishing themselves as key players in the global drug trade. The Texan border in particular has been a hotbed of cartel activity. Its proximity to major drug markets in the United States makes it an attractive entry point for smugglers. Cities like El Paso and Laredo have become notorious for their role in the drug trade, with cartels often engaging in violent confrontations to maintain control over these critical routes. In response to the growing threat posed by the cartels, the United States government has implemented a series of measures aimed at bolstering border security. These efforts have included the deployment of additional personnel, the construction of physical physical barriers, and the use of advanced surveillance technology. The return of President Trump to office in 2025 marked a renewed focus on border security. Under his administration, more active duty troops were deployed to the border, providing much-needed support to Border Patrol agents. The Pentagon deployed approximately 1,500 more active duty soldiers to the U.S.-Mexico border. This deployment brought the total number of active duty troops stationed at the border to around 3,600. The additional troops were sent from the 18th Airborne Corps at Fort Liberty in North Carolina. Their primary tasks included helping to put in place concertina wire barriers, providing transportation and intelligence support to the Border Patrol, and assisting in the logistics and sustainment of the troops. This deployment was part of Trump's executive orders aimed at curbing immigration into the country. The Pentagon worked to put these orders into motion after Trump took office on January 20th. The move was seen as a significant escalation of the administration's efforts to secure the border and prevent illegal immigration and curb cartel activities. The deployment of active duty troops to the border was a topic of controversy, with some arguing that it was a necessary measure to ensure national security, while others saw it as an overreach of executive power. Nevertheless, the Pentagon pressed on with the deployment, citing the need to support the Border Patrol and maintain security along the border. In addition to the troops deployed to the border, about 500 Marines were sent to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, to help prepare the facility for an influx of migrants and perform other support duties. The Marines played a key role in supporting the detention operations at the facility. Less than a month later, the Pentagon sent 3,000 more troops to the border for the same security initiative. Meanwhile, Mexico is also making steps to fortify its side of the border. Amid Trump's crackdown, the Mexican government sent the first of 10,000 active duty troops to the border. Their primary objective is to prevent cartels from causing violence or crossing the border. These troops are also expected to reduce illegal crossing from Mexico to the United States. The Mexican government made this drastic move in response to Trump's threat to increase tariffs imposed on the country. Cartels make billions yearly trafficking through the border. However, Trump has vowed to ruin their efforts. The cartels aren't just sitting back. They are doing whatever it takes to maintain their supply lines. Cartels determined to maintain their territories. Cartels are powerful syndicates that have waged relentless wars on multiple fronts, battling rival cartels, national law enforcement agencies, and international bodies. The United States poses the greatest threat, with its hard stance and direct confrontations under the Trump administration. The history of cartel violence and territorial control in Mexico is a tale as old as time, rooted in power, corruption, and bloodshed. The origins of these notorious organizations can be traced back to the early 20th century, when the illegal drug trade began to take shape. Initially, small-scale operations focused on marijuana and opium production, but the landscape shifted dramatically in the 1970s with the rise of cocaine demand in the United States. The 1980s marked a turning point as Mexican cartels began to assert dominance over the drug trade. The Guadalajara cartel, led by Miguel Ángel Felix Gallardo, emerged as a powerful force, controlling the flow of cocaine from Colombia to the United States. Gallardo's arrest in 1989 led to the fragmentation of the cartel, giving rise to the infamous Sinaloa, Tijuana, and Juarez cartels. These groups quickly became embroiled in violent turf wars, each vying for control over lucrative smuggling routes. The 1990s saw an escalation in violence as cartels expanded their operations and diversified their criminal activities. The Tijuana cartel, led by the Arellano Felix brothers, gained notoriety for their brutal tactics, including assassinations and kidnappings. Meanwhile, the Sinaloa cartel, under the leadership of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, solidified its position as a dominant player in the drug trade. Guzman's escape from prison in 2001 only added to his legend, as he continued to orchestrate operations from the shadows. As the new millennium dawned, the Mexican government intensified its efforts to combat the cartels. In 2006, President Felipe Calderón declared a war on drugs, deploying military forces to dismantle these criminal organizations. However, this strategy backfired, leading to a surge in violence as cartels retaliated with unprecedented ferocity. The Zetas, a paramilitary group formed by former Mexican special forces, emerged as a particularly ruthless faction, known for their extreme violence and intimidation tactics. The cartel's influence influence extended beyond Mexico's borders, infiltrating the United States and other countries through intricate networks of corruption and bribery. Their ability to adapt and evolve in the face of adversity only strengthened their grip on power. The arrest of high-profile leaders such as El Chapo in 2016 did little to weaken their resolve. Instead, these organizations demonstrated a remarkable capacity for resilience, with new leaders swiftly stepping in to fill the void. Throughout this tumultuous history, the cartels have maintained a stranglehold on their territories through a combination of fear, violence, and strategic alliances. They have infiltrated local governments, law enforcement agencies, and even the military, ensuring their continued dominance. The cartel's control over key smuggling routes, such as the infamous Plaza system, has allowed them to maintain a steady flow of drugs into the United States, fueling the opioid crisis and wreaking havoc on communities across the nation. The battle for territorial control is not limited to the cartels themselves. Rival factions frequently clash in brutal turf wars, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Innocent civilians are often caught in the crossfire, as entire towns become battlegrounds in the struggle for supremacy. The strategies and tactics employed by cartels to maintain control over their territories are as varied as they are ruthless. Cartels invest heavily in community relations to maintain control over their territories. By providing social services, such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure improvements, cartels can win the support and loyalty of local populations. This strategy not only helps to legitimize their presence, but also creates a network of informants and supporters who can provide valuable intelligence and assistance. In some cases, cartels have even acted as de facto governments, stepping in to fill the void left by ineffective or absent state authorities. Cartels also leverage their financial power to maintain control over their territories. With vast sums of money at their disposal, cartels can invest in advanced technology, hire skilled personnel, and fund their operations. This financial clout allows them to outmaneuver law enforcement and rival organizations, ensuring their continued dominance. Money laundering is a critical component of this strategy, as it enables cartels to legitimize their profits and reinvest them into their criminal enterprises. In recent years, the Mexican government has shifted its focus towards addressing the root causes of cartel violence. This includes efforts to tackle corruption within law enforcement and government institutions, which have long been infiltrated by cartel influence. By strengthening the integrity and accountability of these institutions, the government aims to create a more effective and trustworthy system capable of combating organized crime. The United States has also played a crucial role in the fight against Mexican cartels. Through joint efforts with the Mexican government, the United States has provided resources, intelligence, and training to support counter-narcotics operations. The Merida Initiative, launched in 2008, is a prime example of this collaboration, providing billions of dollars in aid to enhance Mexico's security capabilities. This partnership has led to significant successes, including the capture of high-profile cartel leaders and the disruption of drug trafficking networks. Domestically, U.S. law enforcement agencies have focused on dismantling cartel operations within the country. The Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and Department of Homeland Security, DHS, have all played pivotal roles in targeting cartel-affiliated gangs and disrupting drug trafficking routes. These efforts have been bolstered by interagency coordination and intelligence sharing, allowing for more effective identification and neutralization of cartel threats. In addition to law enforcement efforts, addressing the demand for illicit drugs in the United States is a critical component of combating cartels. The opioid crisis has highlighted the need for comprehensive addiction treatment resources and public education programs to reduce demand and undermine a significant source of cartel revenue. By investing in prevention and treatment, the United States can weaken the cartel's influence and reduce the flow of drugs into the country. The international implications of cartel activities extend far beyond the borders of Mexico and the United States, impacting global security and the economy in profound and often alarming ways. These powerful criminal organizations have established themselves as formidable players on the world stage, with their influence reaching into various sectors and regions. One of the most significant international implications of cartel activities is their contribution to global drug trafficking networks. Mexican cartels are key players in the distribution of illicit drugs, such as cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and fentanyl to markets around the world. The demand for these substances fuels a multi-billion-dollar industry that transcends national boundaries, with devastating consequences for public health and safety. Cartels have also forged alliances with other transnational criminal organizations, creating a complex web of illicit activities that span continents. These partnerships often involve the exchange of drugs, weapons, and human trafficking, further exacerbating global security challenges. The collaboration between Mexican cartels and Colombian drug traffickers, for example, has facilitated the flow of cocaine from South America to North America and beyond. Similarly, cartels have been known to work with European and Asian criminal networks to expand their reach and diversify their operations. The financial power of cartels is another factor that contributes to their international influence. Through money laundering and other illicit financial activities, cartels are able to legitimize their profits and reinvest them into their criminal enterprises. This not only strengthens their operations, but also poses a significant threat to the global financial system. The infiltration of legitimate businesses and financial institutions by cartel-affiliated entities undermines economic stability and facilitates corruption on a massive scale. Cartel activities also have a direct impact on global security, as their operations often intersect with issues of terrorism and political instability. The vast resources and logistical capabilities of cartels make them attractive partners for terrorist organizations seeking to fund their activities or acquire weapons. In some cases, cartels have been linked to the smuggling of arms and explosives, further complicating efforts to combat terrorism and maintain international peace. No doubt the United States has made a lot of effort in the war against cartels and drugs, but experts believe the war is only escalating the violence, and a more direct confrontation will make things worse. America's war with cartels only escalates violence. As the United States intensifies its efforts to combat these powerful criminal organizations, the unintended consequence has been a surge in violence that reverberates across both sides of the border. The origins of America's war with cartels can be traced back to the late 20th century, a time when the drug trade began to flourish across the Americas. The 1970s and 1980s marked a pivotal era in the evolution of cartel violence, as powerful drug lords emerged, wielding influence and instilling fear. The Medellin and Cali cartels in Colombia were among the first to gain international notoriety, with figures like Pablo Escobar becoming household names. These cartels pioneered the large-scale trafficking of cocaine into the United States, setting the stage for a battle that would span decades. In response to the growing threat posed by these criminal organizations, the U.S. government launched a series of initiatives aimed at curbing the drug trade. The 1980s saw the implementation of the War on Drugs, a campaign spearheaded by President Ronald Reagan. This initiative sought to dismantle drug trafficking networks through a combination of law enforcement efforts, military intervention, and international cooperation. The Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, played a central role in these efforts, working closely with foreign governments to target cartel leaders and disrupt their operations. The U.S. government's response to the escalating violence was multifaceted. In addition to bolstering domestic law enforcement efforts, the U.S. sought to strengthen its partnerships with foreign governments. The 1994 North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, facilitated increased cooperation between the U.S. and Mexico, providing a framework for joint efforts to combat drug trafficking. However, the agreement also inadvertently contributed to the growth of the cartels, as the increased flow of goods across the border provided cover for illicit activities. As the 21st century dawned, the cartels continued to evolve, embracing new technologies and expanding their operations beyond drug trafficking. The rise of the internet and digital communication provided cartels with new tools for coordinating their activities and evading law enforcement. In response, the U.S. government ramped up its efforts to combat these organizations, employing advanced surveillance techniques and intelligence sharing initiatives. Despite these measures, the war with cartels has only escalated violence, as the cartels have become more entrenched and emboldened. The U.S. government's classification of cartels as violent groups under President Trump's administration marked a significant shift in policy, reflecting the growing recognition of the cartel's threat to national security. However, this approach has also raised concerns about the potential for increased violence, as history has shown that direct confrontation often leads to further bloodshed. bloodshed. In recent years, the United States government has intensified its efforts to combat the pervasive influence of Mexican cartels, employing a range of strategies aimed at dismantling these powerful criminal organizations. Under President Donald Trump's administration, a series of bold actions were taken to address the growing threat posed by the cartels, reflecting a heightened sense of urgency and determination. One of the most significant moves by President Trump was the classification of Mexican cartels as terrorist organizations. This designation marked a departure from previous approaches, signaling a more aggressive stance in the fight against cartel violence. By labeling these groups as terrorists, the U.S. government aimed to expand its legal and military options, potentially paving the way for more direct interventions. This decision, however, was met with mixed reactions, as some experts warned that it could lead to unintended consequences, including an escalation of violence. In addition to the terrorist designation, President Trump issued an executive order mobilizing thousands of U.S. military units to the southern border. This move was part of a broader effort to bolster border security and prevent the trafficking of drugs and people into the United States. The deployment of military personnel, alongside U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents, was intended to serve as a deterrent to cartel activities. However, the increased militarization of the border also raised concerns about the potential for violent confrontations and the impact on communities in the region. The Trump administration also took steps to enhance international cooperation in the fight against cartels. Recognizing the transnational nature of the threat, the U.S. sought to strengthen its partnerships with neighboring countries, particularly Mexico. In a high-profile agreement, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum pledged to assist the United States in securing its borders and tackling the cartels. As part of this deal, the U.S. committed to halting the trafficking of weapons into Mexico, which had been a significant factor in arming the cartels. One of the most controversial aspects of the Trump administration's approach was the threat of imposing tariffs on Mexico and Canada for their perceived inaction against the cartels. This economic pressure was intended to compel greater cooperation from these countries in addressing the cartel threat. While the tactic yielded some results, with both countries agreeing to assist the U.S., it also strained diplomatic relations and sparked debates about the effectiveness of such measures. The current strategies employed by the U.S. government reflect a complex approach to combating cartels. While these efforts have achieved some successes, they have also highlighted the challenges inherent in addressing a problem of this magnitude. The cartel's ability to adapt and thrive in the face of increased pressure underscores the difficulty of eradicating such deeply entrenched organizations. The impact of cartel violence on local communities in both the United States and Mexico is profound and far-reaching, affecting countless lives and reshaping the social fabric of entire regions. As the war with cartels continues to escalate, the human cost of this conflict becomes increasingly apparent, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. In Mexico, communities have borne the brunt of cartel violence for decades. The societal implications of cartel violence in Mexico are significant. The constant threat of violence has eroded trust in public institutions, as corruption and collusion between cartels and local authorities are widespread. This lack of trust undermines the rule of law and hampers efforts to combat organized crime effectively. Additionally, the economic impact of cartel violence is substantial, as businesses are forced to pay protection money or face the risk of attacks. This extortion stifles economic growth and discourages investment, further entrenching poverty and inequality in affected areas. In the United States, the impact of cartel violence is felt most acutely in communities along the southern border. These areas serve as key transit points for drug trafficking, making them hotspots for cartel-related activities. The influx of drugs has fueled the opioid crisis, with devastating consequences for public health. As of 2023, 83,000 people in the United States have died from opioid overdoses, a stark reminder of the human cost of the drug trade. The societal implications of cartel violence in the United States extend beyond public health. The presence of cartels has strained law enforcement resources as agencies work tirelessly to combat drug trafficking and related crimes. This strain is particularly evident in border communities, where local law enforcement must contend with the dual challenges of addressing cartel activities and maintaining public safety. America's war with cartels has far-reaching international and diplomatic repercussions, influencing its relations with Mexico and other countries involved in the global fight against drug trafficking. Enhanced international cooperation is another key component of alternative strategies to combat cartel violence. By fostering collaboration between countries, particularly those most affected by the drug trade, there is potential to improve intelligence sharing, law enforcement coordination, and joint operations. This approach emphasizes diplomatic engagement and mutual support in addressing the transnational nature of organized crime. However, achieving effective international cooperation can be challenging due to differing national interests and priorities. One thing is clear though, Trump has absolutely no plan of stopping his attack on the cartels and illegal immigrants. At the end of the day, we can only work and see. Thanks for watching. Check the cards on the screen for more content.